Yeah, let's talk about Origin.
Let's talk about Origin,
Yeah.
Alan.
So, yeah, when you when I was invited to screenings of Origin last year, I was like, "There's no way in hell I'm seeing this movie." Because
Why do you say that?
why do I say that? Because I've seen this movie before, in the sense of, it's just going to be a lecture about racism in America, white people bad, blah blah blah, and then you reviewed it 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
I was like, okay, maybe it's not what I think it is. And then I saw it that week and realized, wow, it is really not what what I thought this movie was going to be. I was incredibly surprised by the thoughtfulness of this movie. And look, I'll describe the movie as this. It's based on the book Cast. I forget the full title. I think it's the Cast: The Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson. And the movie is basically Isabel. It's about Isabel Wilkerson, played by Ingenue Taylor. Yeah, something. I don't have it up here. Sorry. Ingenue Ellis Taylor, and she plays Isabel Wilkerson. And the movie is essentially her research for the book. And so it starts off, and we've had some comments about this, but it starts off with the Trayvon Martin murder. And the first thing that stuck out to me about how this movie is different than any other discussion about it is Isabel Wilkerson describes the Trayvon murder as why would a Latino man kill a black teen in an all-white neighborhood? And that stuck out to me because the message we've been getting about the Trayvon murder was it was a white guy who killed Trayvon Martin. And it was like, okay, so they at least got the nuance of that little aspect of it. But the thing is, this is not about Trayvon Martin's murder. It's the murder was basically the jumpstart of the story. And her whole thesis is the idea that human atrocities that have occurred over time have some kind of interconnected tissue running through it. Whether it's slavery, whether it's the Holocaust, whether it's the caste system in India, even the Armenian genocide, and the ultimate point she makes here is that the problem of racism in America has nothing to do with race. It has to do with the fact that we've created a caste system without knowing it. And that in America, so she explores the caste system in India, why a homogenous group of people would put people in groups and then place hierarchies over that group. In America, we do the same thing, except these groups are grouped by race. So you have black, you have white, you have Latino, you have Asian. And then the way it works is how you rank these races. And she describes it as this broken scaffolding system. And that the problem we have with race today is that we've built a caste system that places everyone in groups based on race, and we put it in the system that is going to fall apart at some point. And I believe the intent of this book was to finally say, to solve the problems, we need to get rid of the scaffolding system. We need to get rid of these caste systems that we've created, and truly come to a point where we see each other as equals. The reality of that we are all human beings. We can give each other blood transfusions. We can give each other organs. We are all human beings. It's our culture and our skin color that creates a separation. And that's this movie. And it was just, what I appreciated about Origin so much was that it was a new way of looking at racism in America without being vitriolic, without blaming a group. Look, the caste system, the people at the top have culpability here. They have their sins that they've created. But the problem is that we in America feel like we need to solve racism, solve this caste system by just shifting boxes, by putting a new group at the top and a new group at the bottom. And that's not going to solve the problem, because all you're doing is perpetuating that caste system. So that's what I got out of this movie. Interestingly enough, there was about 5 of us in my theater, and one was an elderly black couple. and I just happened to walk out while they were standing there, and we just started talking about this. And he was like me. He was saying, I was not expecting to see the movie that I saw, and that he was expecting something very different, and was very, very glad to have seen what he saw. And so I would say this, I've been looking at this race issue for a majority of my life, and this is the first time I've heard a different take that I think is closer to the answer than any other take we've had. And I would say, whether you agree with it or not, see this movie. Expose yourself to a different line of thinking that's very different than what we're being shown on television. And I would say, don't let the discussion of Trayvon Martin stop you, because it's really the jumping off point. It's not the crux or the foundation of the film. It was just an event that sparked everything.
Well, it's a big event. It was a big event in the media. Remember, I mean, Obama even commented on it, like, this could have been my son, right? Like, so it doesn't get into the details of that case, which I think are muddied. There was more to it, and I'm not going to get into it. And the movie doesn't get into it. But what I do like is the question is asked: everything can't be racist. Not everything is racist. There is a group, mostly on social media, that wants to look at the world through the lens of everything is racist, right? And it's just not true. There's different reasons for it. And I think what I appreciate about this character is that's the idea that she's exploring in it. So I think it's a very worthwhile film to kick off a discussion. At the same time, I feel like this movie is only going to reach people who already agree with a lot of the premises in the film. It's not going to change hearts and minds. Like I said in my review of it, I said, you're better off making an updated version of Blazing Saddles that mocks our divisiveness and racism, and mocks it and makes light of it, instead of this very serious film that's going to turn some people off. Ultimately, I think humor is a great way to deal with things like that. I mean, look, I grew up in a suburb of Detroit, right? And I thought by the time that I would reach the age that I am now, that we wouldn't even be talking about this. We'd be living in Star Trek times, because I watched Star Trek with my dad when I was a kid. And that was one of the things that was so groundbreaking about Star Trek, is you have all these people and they're all equal. I mean, there's a hierarchy with command and whatnot, but it was considered a matter that was dealt with at that time. Like, it was all like, we handled that years ago. There's that one famous episode with Frank Gorshin, who plays the Riddler on the 66 Batman, where like on one half of his face, he's white, one half he's black. And then he's chasing after the guy. And he's like, it's the opposite on the other guy. He's black on one side of his face and white. Like, can't you tell the difference between us? But it was totally mocking modern day racism, but did it in a way that wasn't lectury. It was a really compelling story. And that was one of the episodes that dealt with that, but they dealt with it in a way that didn't make other people wrong. Right. That's the problem with modern Star Trek now, is it really makes everyone wrong. I think that's the problem with a lot of entertainment that's a problem with a lot of the entertainment that deals with race, is it's making one group of people bad and one good. And that is such a simple-minded way of dealing with it. And look,
that was the point of Star Trek. Star Trek was the utopian society. This is, humanity had come to this point where we had eliminated racism, eliminated sexism, and now we are going out into the universe to kind of see, to challenge these ideas, and to kind of go backwards with that with Star Wars, to say that no, we're not a utopian society anymore. We are a flawed society, just as flawed as we were back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
No, you're talking about Star Trek, right?
I am talking about Star Trek. Yeah.
No, but you said Star Wars. Anyways,
Star Wars.
Whatever.
I'm talking about Star Trek.
Yeah. But no, the new Star Trek is unwatchable to me. I've tried to watch it. With the exception of Picard season 3, it's fairly dismissible, and I think that everyone is so sick of this. I think there are people who would benefit from seeing Origin that will absolutely not go see it, simply because it's like, oh, I'm so tired of lectures in the mainstream media. No. You're not. But the thing is this: someone has a right to think that way. That's okay. It's okay
Yeah.
to why do people think that way? Because the media it's been shoved down people's throats that if you are look a certain way, we've replaced old racism, which was bad, with new racism, which is also bad.
Yeah.
And you know, I thought at a certain point somewhere in the 90s, it's like we kind of like I'm not going to say it's solved. I don't think it will ever be solved.
Yeah.
Anyone that thinks there will be zero racism
Yeah.
it's a pipe dream. There are always going to be some idiot, some troll, probably a kid, could be some kid that is just testing boundaries who shouldn't be on social media. You know that Florida has a bill? They're trying to make it that no one under the age of 16 is allowed to use any social media. I'm interested to
Oh,
see where that goes.
that'll go over great.
But we'll see how that goes. But
Yeah.
look, what's happened in recent years is the script has been flipped, where male and pale is stale, right? That's like a phrase that's bandied about in Hollywood, in entertainment, whatever. And look, I'm not going to apologize for being a straight white male. I'm just a person. Okay. No apologies for me ever.
Yeah.
Not coming. But I love people. I love people. I'm attracted to people that are as passionate as I am and who have ideas where we can discuss things, but we're not so petty that we have to put certain people on a pedestal and others not. No, you're a person, impress me with your ideas. And there's a certain type of person who they feel they are so. Here's what I'll say. I'm always impressed by people's intellect, intelligence. What books have you read? We talk. I mean, we bond by movies or pop culture. Hey, comic books. You read that Frank Miller series? Well, that's why I love the nerd space, right? They've tried to be divisive in the nerd space. The last space you should be doing this. And there's so many great lessons from science fiction, from sports. We all unite around a cause so that the Detroit Lions will beat the 49ers and go to the Super Bowl. And we're all from different backgrounds. Some of us grew up poor, some didn't, some middle class, some not. But we're all here towards a common goal. Those lessons are from sports, the military, science fiction, and it's all being perverted. It's being perverted today, and it disgusts me. It needs to be called out. It needs to be called out. And this movie at least touches on these ideas, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point, is to make you rethink this.
Right.
Look, there's a scene that really stuck out to me, and I kind of dismissed it when you talked about it, but there's a scene where Isabel's basically has a leak in her basement. Her husband is dead.
Right.
She needs to get someone to fix it. And in comes Nick Offerman, and he's wearing a MAGA hat. And what's interesting about the scene is that the Wilkerson character, she is visibly uncomfortable with his presence simply because he's wearing a MAGA hat. And throughout the entire scene, all he's doing is saying what happened, giving her an estimate, doing his job as a plumber. Yeah. And you just see this really uncomfortable conversation because she's visibly upset by him. You can tell that she is treating him differently, and that you can tell that he knows that he knows that she is judging him for the sole reason that he's wearing that hat. And the scene doesn't end itself. There's no real this scene was about this, but it was just what the scene was about was to show that that we are at odds with one another, and the side that we think is good and the side that we think is bad, really, again, we are just people, and we judge each other constantly. And that's the whole thing about the caste system. I see some comments about, the caste system isn't about race. No, that's exactly right. That the point is that as society, as people, we always categorize people as either better than us, equal to us, or lower than us. And the way you treat people are better than us, and the way you treat people lower than us, you now just magnify that, multiply it millions of times, and that's the society that we have now. And you need to get rid of this. And not to bring religion into this, but I will. Christianity is based, at least the teachings of Jesus, is always based on servanthood. The meek shall inherit the earth. Talks about humility, talks about serving other people. And in fact, the greatest form of love, as the Bible says, is willing to give your life for another person. I don't know many religions that take that standpoint, that says, you do want to ultimately go for that equal status with people. No matter who they are, you want to treat people as either higher than yourself or equal to yourself.
Look, I've been around the nerd space obviously since I was a kid, and one of the things, especially reading X-Men when I was a kid, I read all the early X-Men comics and whatnot, and there are little subtle messages in there about bigotry, but they're not like overt, they're not hitting you over the head, they're just there. And so being around the nerd space is the most accepting space you could possibly be in. I almost think sports fans, when you get sports fans together, you love this team, you love that team, that means we're enemies, is sort of less accepting, right? There's not that like sportsmanship. But the thing is that bothers me a little bit is so much of a lot of the current content is anti-white and overtly racist. It's just like that doesn't solve any. That's just compounding the problem.
Yeah.
What I would rather.
Let me just illuminate that a bit. But it's that caste system. All you're doing is you're taking the hierarchy, these groups, and just flipping it. You're not solving it. You're just perpetuating it.
You're making it worse.
Series. Yeah.
Here's what I wish we did. Why aren't we celebrating how great we are as a country? That we are a country of so many different types of people, and things function for the most part, at least without government interference. But I feel the media is pushing a narrative to divide us, and I'm done with it. There needs to be more out in the universe, whether it's a movie, TV show, social media posts. Why don't we celebrate where we are? Why don't we celebrate where we are? Why aren't we, look, it wasn't even, what is 100, how many years ago we fought a civil war and we ended slavery. We went through some bad times with Jim Crow, but we are so far from that in the rear view mirror. Why don't we ever celebrate how amazing we are as a country that we could do this? So many other cultures, especially in Asian countries, and they all hate each other, by the way.
Oh yeah. That's a whole other caste system.
That's another thing we could talk about. The Koreans hate the Japanese. Everybody hates the Japanese, actually.
But everyone hates the Chinese now.
And the Chinese, and everybody. Like, you could go on and on between different types of Asians. And this is why they just sort of throw Asians into one group. Asians, the very different groups, just like white people. I'm part Irish, German, English, Russian, and Polish. I'm like Europe had an orgy. Okay. But like, look, all I'm saying is, why don't we celebrate how amazing we are? Why don't we celebrate? Like, you know what? 50 years ago, it wasn't great, but it was better than it was. And it just keeps getting better. Why aren't we doing that? There are so many successful Black people in the United States. It's anyone can succeed. There are fewer barriers to entry. It's not like there's a class system that you can't move, through. Although I'll say, I think things are getting worse. I think the middle class is being gutted. And the best thing that we could do is build up the middle class. I mean, we could get into a whole thing about fatherless homes and how damaging that is to kids. Look, I grew up with a single mother when I was a kid. And I'll say there are things I've had to struggle with because of that. But I was just taught by my grandparents, who were kind of my surrogate parents. You got to work hard. You want something? Work hard. You want that? Go get a job. You want that? I'll give you $1 if you mow the lawn. I just learned like valuable lessons about work and whatnot, and a work ethic. And I feel like we've lost that as a country, and we've lost being proud to be in a country that anyone can succeed if they're willing to work hard.
Well, from an economic, you talk about the middle class. From an economic standpoint, the destruction of small businesses is equally frightening to me. The pandemic destroyed the middle class because it destroyed small business.
Let's go. Yeah.
Let me just say one last thing about
Sure.
origin and why I believe origin is important to see. When it comes to the discussion of race in America today, there are questions you cannot ask. You cannot ask certain questions like, can you fight racism with racism? Can you be truly colorblind? In Origin, they ask those questions and they address those questions. And that if anything, I've never seen a movie about race do that, to ask the tough questions that pokes an eye at both sides of the issue. And again, that's why I think this movie is so important.
Again, I really wish we celebrated how amazing we are, that we're capable of working together as a country. You know what I do? This is weird. I mean, this sounds like a weird thing to say. Thank you for that, Joe. I'm looking forward to a time when someone black is going to be questioned that they're racist. And a black person will say, I'm not racist. I have white friends. I have a white friend. Because it's such a dumb thing that white people get criticized for saying, I have a black friend. And yeah, it's, you know, sometime in the future, you're going to have a black person say, I have a white friend.
Yeah. Well, the Isabel Wilkerson was criticized for having a white husband.
Right. Jewish too.